So earlier today, on Nintendo Today, Nintendo's news app, they showed off this video. It's the mouse on the Joy-Con 2 mouse, whatever you want to call it. Mouse mode, I guess, mouse mode, double M. So double M was shown off controlling the home menu, and it makes sense that it was on this. I never thought of it though. When I saw the home menu, I think a lot of us came to the conclusion, oh, it's kind of lame. Like, they made a few improvements here and there, but most of it just felt like arbitrary changes, like nothing crazy. Like, okay, the corners are rounded on the icons, there's this bar now, and I don't think the mouse mode even really crossed my mind on where it would appear with the home menu or if it would have any influence with that. But all of a sudden we get this video showing a little cursor wobbling around, and then after some time, right, of sitting on this menu and you know, realizing that it is what it is and just coming to terms with that, seeing this actually made me appreciate this new menu a little bit more. Maybe it's not as evil and scary as we once thought, eh, lads? But, like, one example, right, is the bar at the bottom went from little icons, they're all separate little, like, circles with symbols in them, to now one large bar. And even seeing that and seeing a mouse roll around, maybe you guys see what I'm going with, but immediately my mind went to one thing, and that was Apple computers. You know, with the dock at the bottom, it just feels very, very similar, and I think they definitely took some sort of inspiration from that, or maybe they just had similar thought processes. I don't know, maybe this is just like complete cap and I'm going crazy, because maybe you've never heard this comparison, but for the entire time I've been in the online video game zeitgeist, or whatever you want to call it, I've always heard Nintendo being compared to Apple. They do things different to other companies, maybe for better, maybe for worse. They have this ecosystem which they don't want anyone else interacting with, and now they're both a little bit expensive. So yeah, maybe I'm crazy for that, but this definitely does feel like a very Apple menu, especially when you see the mouse scrolling around. But since the menu has mouse support, do you know what else has mouse support, guys? It's Mii's. Mii's are going to get mouse support, which I don't know how much of a difference that'll make, or if it'll be that fun to use versus like the random sticks. But to me, the original Mii Maker, right, on the Wii, did use the pointer controls mainly. I don't think you could use the D-pad on the top of the Wii remote to like go between options. I think it was only done with a pointer and you couldn't do it any other way. And so for this to sort of bring back an homage to the initial method of creating Mii's, I think it's kind of fun. Have we had any other console which allows you to do it with a pointer, or with like, you know, a mouse pointer sort of thingy? If that makes sense, because think about it, 3DS with Mii's, you use for touchscreen. Even the Wii U used for touchscreen, you did not point to make your Mii at all. Switch, you know, you just use the sticks, or again, for touchscreen. So this is technically the first time we've had a pointer to make Mii's since the Wii, which is really sort of interesting and cool. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one who cares about that, but I don't know. Trivia, I guess. And it's funny as well, for a console which is probably the most iterative of the previous one, you know, being named Switch 2, it's funny that the most unique and creative aspect added to the console, which gives it like some flair, is something which we've had before on multiple Nintendo consoles. You know, we have the SNES mouse, the N64 mouse, which was in Japan, obviously the Wii pointer, but weirdly enough, I think as everything is becoming more touchscreen, right, like most people might not even need to use a home computer. I think many kids today don't grow up with home computers, you know, it's just either iPads or phones or tablets and stuff. Nintendo bringing in the idea of mouse controls is surprisingly exciting, and I think it's just because that amount of time has passed where it seems more novel than it might have been if I had this a couple years ago. It's like post N64, between like the GameCube and the Switch, you know, when most people had home computers as well, them adding a mouse during that time would have seemed a bit arbitrary and random. But not anymore, lads. In 2025, the mouse is back. But something you might have not known about the mouse on the Switch 2 Joy-Con, which I didn't even realize until actually using it at the Nintendo event in London, was that it's not just a standard mouse, right? Like if you have a mouse next to you, if you're watching this on your computer, wiggle your mouse around, right? If you wiggle it around like the Lite button or like the commentator, yeah, like wiggle around there, and you'll notice for like, oh, okay, if you twist the mouse, right? If you twist it left and right, it just sort of like wiggles randomly to like, oh, well, you're kind of making movement because of its optical sensor. It's sort of going all crazy and haywire. But with the Switch 2, that doesn't happen, because I think it's referencing the gyro controls within it as well, where if you rotate the Joy-Con to like the left and right and stuff, in mouse mode, the pointer twists and turns and takes into account rotation. And thinking about the games which could apply to that, obviously when you think of the games which will come because of the mouse controls, you think of RTS games, you think of first-person shooters which would have better controls. You think of creative applications, art software, music software. But we're also forgetting that there's this extra flair to this where it's not just a standard mouse. They've labeled it as a mouse. I think that's smart. They could have called it like Cursmo or Mousy, or like, you know, like a little cute funny name. And sure, that'd be kind of cute and nice, but they just standard called it a mouse. And I think that's doing it a little disservice because it does seem to be doing a bit more than what a mouse can do. And obviously this is prominent in the main software which they're showing with this, which is DragX Drive, which I did get a chance to play and I did enjoy it, but I think experiencing the mouse cursor in a place which is supposed to be like very competitive and physically inducing, right? It's like you are moving your arms like crazy, and my arms were a little bit sore after just doing it for like 5 minutes. But there was so much going on with that game, with the controls as well. There was so much you could do. It was very overwhelming, and I think for a game to show off the mouse controls and what it could do, it did an interesting job and an interesting take on it. But I think there's also so much more you can do with it, which I'm really excited to see, either from Nintendo or from third-party developers. And speaking of third parties, there is a specific set of games which I really want to come to Switch 2, and I was surprised that we didn't see any of them represented within the Nintendo Direct. I almost had like a bet with a friend that Valve games would have appeared during the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. Obviously, I didn't make that bet, and good thing I didn't, because otherwise I would have lost, but I was thinking like, you know, Portal Collection got brought to the Switch. Why don't we get the Half-Life games? Why don't we get TF2? Why don't we get Deadlock? I'm very addicted to Deadlock. Can we get these games on Switch 2? Because I feel like these games almost need mouse controls, especially Deadlock. That game would not work well at all if you didn't have a mouse. And being able to play PC titles, you know, out and about or somewhere you don't have a computer, that seems very appealing to me, because one of the biggest frustrations I feel when I am traveling and still want to play video games, you know, I bring my Switch along. I'm either in London for like a Nintendo event, or I'm in Atlanta very soon for MomoCon. That's very exciting. Whenever I'm at any of these locations around the world and I only have my Switch, there's only a set amount of games which I can play with my mates. There's a very specific set of games where I'm like, oh, I can only play this when I'm back home. Like Lethal Company was a big one for me, because I adore that game, and me and my friends played it all the time. And then whenever I traveled or was out about, I'm like, wouldn't mind playing that game, a quick round of screaming, running away from my mates. But I couldn't, because, you know, what I have, my MacBook. I tried doing it once, actually. It was not pleasant, I will say. I do not recommend playing Lethal Company on a Mac. But again, if there's one system which can cover all of this, right? RTS games, FPS games, just play your entire library, it would be pretty bloody nice. And unfortunately, I don't think the Switch is going to be to that extent a one console fits all. It's almost there, but it's just a case of like Nintendo's ecosystem mentality. Again, similar to Apple, of like, okay, this is our console, you play what we want you to play. That sort of mentality and sort of old school style will inherently not be a system for you to go and find, I don't know, open source games or something. And I guess that will really make the Steam Deck compete a bit more with the Switch 2, where it's like, okay, do you want these high quality experiences which you can only get on the Switch 2, or do you want to get a Steam Deck and you can have all these games, thousands of games, and you can mod it and do all these crazy stuff. It's all modified and you can go wild and ham with it. We are really branching off into these two avenues right now, and I'm very interested in seeing where that goes from here. But that's just what I think about the mouse controls and everything to do with the Switch 2's little wiggly mouse. What do you guys think about the little wiggly mouse? And be sure to stay tuned for more mood news in the upcoming days and weeks as we quickly approach the launch of the system. Take care and brush your hair.